But let's start with Golden State, Memphis. And you can't start anywhere other than with Ja Morant. I thought there was a deliberate strategy from Golden State to guard Ja in single coverage. And there's a bunch of different, ideologies with how to stop a star. And you've probably, you've heard the cliches surrounding them, like make everybody else beat us or don't let anybody else beat us, right? Those are the two kind of strategies to go about. And for the most part, in the last couple of years, you've seen a lot more with the make everybody else beat us type of strategy. You see so much more attention devoted to stars. We've talked about it a lot on this show. Teams have just gotten so sophisticated with how to rotate on the back end. And then the losing of the traditional big man and supplementing that with another wing athlete. And then the complete disappearance of the traditional power forward, the Paul Millsap type of player, and bringing in rangy, athletic, basically wings that are playing the forward for the most part. The overall foot speed of these teams is so much higher than it used to be that you have the ability to cover ground on the back end, and usually you can get away with double teaming. But there's an advantage to going with single coverage, and it usually throws the other guys out of rhythm, right? Like the advantage is, Desmond Bane had another really bad game. Desmond Bane is now, in both games in this series, been pretty much useless offensively. We talked a lot about how Desmond Bane is not a traditional shot creator in the sense that you don't just throw him the ball against good defenses and he creates shots for himself. He's not that kind of wing. What he is he's an advantage attacker. He's kind of like Klay Thompson. If you can get him with the defender closing out at him from a distance, he's going to make plays. He'll either knock down a ton of threes or he'll pump fake and get to the rim and things like that. But what if you stay home? What if you stay on Ja single coverage and you consistently have a defender tied up with Bane? He doesn't get those opportunities, and it affects him everywhere on the floor. And it affects the psychology of the total team. There's a reason why, even though Ja had such an amazing night, this game wasn't, as much of a convincing win as you would have hoped for. If you tell me I'm going to get 47, 8, and 8 out of Ja, I'm hoping for a 15, 20-point win, right? But no, it was close. But here's the flip side. The advantage of going with single coverage on Ja is you throw everybody else out of rhythm. It helps you with defensive rebounding because you have guys assigned to bodies. There's a bunch of like obvious pluses that come from that. But the downside is Ja Morant is a top 10 basketball player on planet Earth. And so if you leave him in single coverage against great defensive players, against, average to good defensive players, he's going to have a ton of success. And that's where the Gary Payton Jr. injury ended up being a massive swing factor in this game. We're going to get to that in a minute. I have a gigantic problem with what Dillon Brooks did tonight. We'll get to that in a second. But without Gary Payton Jr. out there, it was a lot of Ja Morant against Steph Curry, against Klay Thompson, against Jordan Poole. He even was getting shots off against Andrew Wiggins at the end of the game. And that's because Ja Morant, like I said, is a top 10 NBA player. And if you leave him on an island, there's a chance that he burns you. To Golden State's credit with the strategy, they had a very good chance to win the game. We'll get to that in just a minute. But Ja was magnificent down the stretch, made every single play at the end of the game, despite Golden State having multiple punches and taking multiple leads at the end. I made a lot of comps during this regular season between Ja and 2006 D-Wade because we know so much about playoff basketball from all of our years watching it, right? And we know that matchups can swing a series. It's no different than, Roy Hibbert with the Pacers causing massive problems for LeBron and D-Wade because he was camped under the basket, and the way that dragged those series out. You saw Dwight Howard in 2009 carry a team to the finals because nobody could guard him, and even a great team like the Cleveland Cavaliers was just, he ate Zydrunas Ilgauskas alive, and it changed the series. Well, back in 2006, something similar happened. The Miami Heat team, they were good, but they weren't your typical championship team that just absolutely destroys everybody all season long and then runs through everybody in the postseason. No, they were, just a standard playoff team that won a tough series against the Detroit Pistons to get out of the Eastern Conference. They fall down 2-0 to the Dallas Mavericks. And then something happens, a singular matchup factor that completely changed the series. And yes, officiating played a part in it. But nobody could guard Dwayne Wade. Nobody could keep him in front. Nobody could keep him out of the lane. And then when he got into the lane, he was such a freaky athlete vertically and with his speed linearly that he would just kind of fall down half the time. And there was contact, the same type of contact that you see on a lot of playoff plays. But when you contact a player that's flying into the lane way faster than normal humans do, it's tough to interpret as an official. And so what happened? Dwayne Wade got a shit ton of calls, shot a million free throws. Then when they didn't foul him or they didn't have enough bodies in the paint, he was scoring at will in the paint. And a young player who was not the best player in the league, very similar trajectory in terms of where his league standing is to a Ja Morant, nobody could guard him, and he won an NBA championship. Now, is Memphis going to win an NBA championship? I don't think so. Steph, Klay, and Jordan Poole went 6 for 29 from 3 tonight and had 9 turnovers. It was a disastrous game from Golden State, and they damn near took a 2-0 lead on your home floor. If I'm a Golden State Warriors fan tonight, I'm feeling fantastic about where we are in this series. But I wanted to, I have to credit Ja. 47, 8, and 8. He flashed that same thing that I'm talking about. No one could keep him in front. At the end of the game, all they did was traditional 5-out spacing. So they had, guys in each corner, guys on each wing, and they basically had Ja Morant at the top of the key, spread floor, just go to work. And it's really simple, and it worked tonight. Now, the question will be, how sustainable is that? You guys know how I feel about, repetitiveness on offense in the playoffs. You can't just get away with running a high isolation time and time again. Even if Ja's having success individually, and even if you have some of the spacing stuff figured out, the individual defenders, the guys like Steph, the guys like Jordan Poole, the guys like Wiggins, will get so accustomed to seeing the moves that Ja Morant is using that over the course of the series, they'll get more and more stops. And then again, if you're in single coverage in that situation and your other players are out of rhythm, that's where the problems can come. My philosophy is when you let a guy in single coverage like that all night long and you let him get going, a great time to start suddenly double teaming him is at the end of the game. The reason why is nobody's in a rhythm. Nobody has any confidence. If that ball ends up in Desmond Bane's hand, like Desmond Bane got a couple of wide open looks in that fourth quarter that he missed. Wide open. Desmond Bane I think he led the league in 3-point percentage this year. So Desmond Bane, fantastic shooter, missed some open shots at the end. That's where you got to go in a setting like this. Is Ja's got all the numbers, you got everybody out of rhythm. Late game is when you start throwing extra bodies at him and try to turn him into a passer, make guys make shots. You know what I'm saying? So from that standpoint, you tip your cap to Ja. He beat you because of your defensive strategy. He's got to beat you 4 times. You did your job. You went on the road as the team that doesn't have home court advantage. You stole a game in Golden State. And as a result, now you have home court advantage. Now you go home to Golden State. You win a couple games on your home floor. You have a 3-1 lead. Now you can afford to go into Memphis and drop a game 5 if you have to. Just Golden State, again, you want to have a 2-0 lead. I get if you're a Warriors fan, you could be a little bit disappointed in the way things went. But at the end of the day, you stole a game in Memphis. That's all you had to do.